I think I'll go ahead and share my PowerPoint, and this is the same one that you all should be seeing. I'm going to go to the beginning of the show, and we can start talking about what we're going to be doing today. So this is the last session. We don't have a speaker at the end, so I want to fit in everything you could possibly want to know about grant writing that we haven't spoken about yet. Not true, but there are several things that we'll talk about. The first thing I want to do is introduce the idea of the help sessions that come along with the class. We'll go back to talking about session 3 and our budgeting work. And then the new information for today, we're going to talk about site visits. I have an activity, and some of you will be sharing more about your projects in that activity. And then we'll talk about final reports and some tips on how to get started in those. Most of the session today will be about evaluation work and how you go about creating new programs to accomplish what you hope they will. And then I will use this class to show you how I set up the evaluation for this class using the concepts that I'll present in the evaluation work. And then I'll give you a chance to take that evaluation so you can see, for those of you that haven't done evaluation work, what they're used for and why organizations ask the same kinds of questions that you always see in those surveys. So it will help you if you're headed in the direction of having to create your own surveys and getting started on that work. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is that throughout the month of November, I'm going to have what I call office hours. So I'm happy to meet with you and do some work moving your project forward. So we did a project charter, we did a one-pager, and we have the budget that's out there. And so maybe you need help on your budget. Great, let's do that. After today, maybe you need to finalize what your outcomes are and figure out how you're going to measure what success looks like. We can work on that. So anything that you want to work on in your projects, I'm available to do that. It will come through a Zoom meeting like this. So if you will email me and just say, here's what I'd like to work on, or I don't know what I'd like to work on, but I feel like I'm stuck, then that would be terrific. When you do that, I may ask you for some files of what you're working on so that I can look at those in advance of our meeting so that I'm ready to go when you are. So are there any questions about that? For some of you, it may be more than one meeting. So let's just let me know where you're at and what you will need. So I'm looking forward to those. Then also last time, your homework was to take one of the templates that I shared and create a budget and to send that to me. I did get a couple of budgets to review, and I know that several of you are still working on those. So one of the slides that I didn't get to last time is shown here. And I wanted to go through this because this is, to me, the budget cycle and how you get started on planning out your budget. So the first point is, because it's a cycle, you're going to go around more than once. So the first time you go through this cycle, you may not have a really good idea of what all your numbers are. That's fine. If we only had one cycle for our budget, then we'd have to have exact numbers. But it may take 3 different cycles before you feel like you really know what's going on and you've got a final plan. So don't make that first cycle impossible because you have to have all the numbers, okay? So let's look at that cycle. The first thing we do is we look at the project scope, and we say, okay, how much do we think this is going to cost? If we had to buy all of the work ourselves, if we had to do it all ourselves, what would it cost? The second step is we say, okay, here's how much it's going to cost. Do we know anybody that we can get to donate some of those expenses? Or who are the partners that we should have in this project, and how do we include them in the work that we're going to do? So we're determining, is any of this going to be in kind? So once we know that, then we're ready for the expenses to draft the cash expenses and the in-kind expenses, right? Great. So now that we know what the expenses are, we can take the in-kind work and put that in our revenue plan. And then we have to figure out, how much do we think we are going to need from grants? Who are the right funders? And what kind of match does our own organization need to make, right? So that's real. So we've created the expenses. Now we've got our funding plan. And then we're going to either go to our board and say, will you allow us to use these resources that we need to commit? Or maybe it will be a staff person who can make the decision about, yeah, that looks good. Or, you know, we really can't afford to put any cash into this project, so that needs to be in kind. So we need to find somebody else with cash. So after that step, then we'll go around and refine our project a little more. That's the way I think about it. But what I'd like to do is now turn to you guys and hear how your budgeting work is going, and or if you have any other successes, you did a great one-pager, or you finished your project charter and you're excited about that and you'd like to share, I'd like to hear from you. So who has something to share?
I can share something.
Great. Hi, Abby.
It's important to the recovery. Our project is for housing for Slater fire victims, and we had a victory last week about getting FEMA declaration. So it was going to be really hard for recovery if we hadn't gotten the FEMA declaration, and so feels good to have gotten that. And I think it will be pretty helpful for these individual families that have been so impacted without insurance and underinsured. So that was a victory for us, for sure.
And so that, yes, so that means individuals can apply directly to FEMA. And is your organization going to be supporting those families as they do that?
Yeah, I think that not only does the individual assistance helps, but it provides a different level of access to low income or to low interest loans that wouldn't have been open if we hadn't been awarded individual assistance. So, you know, these people who are renters or underinsured or uninsured will have something to help them as they rebuild their lives. And without that, it was going to be a huge uphill battle. So it's definitely a victory.
It's a victory. And do you feel the responsibility of all the work now coming towards you?
Honestly, there's a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of people working on this project. The Kirk Tribe, you know, foundations like Ford are, you know, super involved. The Community Foundation of the North State, just everything that's happened. It feels good to have so much support. So it is a lot of work, but I think having this piece is an important part. Otherwise, I think it would feel really defeated and impossible. So
Well, thank you for sharing. And Abby, is that a Starbucks card, a Dutch Brothers card, or an Amazon card for you? I can't hear you.
Oh, I'll take Amazon. Thank you.
Okay.
And who else has a success story? Either a success story or a dead end. I reached a dead end, I know it, and now I'm moving in a different direction.
I have kind of a success story. It's not directly applicable, but it sort of is, because we had been working for a SELECTS grant, and it didn't come through because of COVID issues. But because of that, we are now getting support from Newport, who wants to help us by helping promote fund gathering for so much a mile, like $150 or $50 a mile, to support what we're doing. And that came through yesterday.
Great. So the Tribal SELECTS Fund said no, and because of that, you maybe reached out of your box and decided we have to do something else, and that led to a positive relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like a winner to me.
Yeah.
Very good. So Lydia, is that worth an Amazon card, Starbucks, or Dutch Brother?
None of those. I'm sorry. A, I don't drink coffee, and B, I will not work with Amazon. So sorry.
Well,
thank you. Pass it on.
Thank you for sharing. Anybody else? Okay, well, please, as you're going, if something comes up that you want to share, send Kathy or I an email and let us know about your projects, because one, we care, and two, it's kind of fun to keep networking on where your projects are going. So very good. All right. Now, the other thing I said was that we were going to do this site visit activity, and we're going to talk a little bit about experience with site visits and what happens before we get to the activity. But let me just see you nod. Did everybody get the site visit questions? Okay, good. And those aren't magical questions. It's just a list of generic questions. Sometimes in advance of a site visit, the funder will send you the specific questions that they're going to ask, and other times they won't. So this common list of site visit questions is a good starting place, especially if they haven't provided you with a specific list. So site visits are about a personal relationship with funders. They usually come after you've made the first cut, so to speak, on a grant application. They're really considering your work. So the foundation is going to invest the time and resources to come out and meet with your organization and just get to know you. I did send along an article because I think it's a great article. It's called "The Truth About Site Visits, Why Grant Makers Do Them, and What You Should Know." And I will just let you enjoy that. But what I want to do is, I know some of you have experience with site visits, so I'd like to hear about your site visits. When it happened, when you had one, what happened? How long did it last? Who was there, and what was the experience like for you? So who would like to start with sharing about a site visit example? George, can I put you on the spot? or Ernie